Have you ever had one of those moments where you're standing in front of a coffee machine, the buttons are all in English, and someone behind you asks a simple question? Maybe it's just, "Is this one working?" And your mind just freezes. It's not that you don't understand the words. You know, is this one working? But your brain, instead of forming a simple yes, it is, decides to embark on a frantic search for the most perfect, most grammatically impeccable, most advanced sentence possible. Meanwhile, the person behind you is waiting, and all you can manage is a strained smile and a weak nod. I've been there. I spent years feeling that frustrating gap between knowing English and actually living in it. That gap, my friends, is what we're going to bridge together. Welcome. This isn't about memorizing more grammar rules from a textbook. This is about taking the English you already have and making it work for you in the real world, in daily situations that used to make you nervous. I'm not a distant teacher, think of me as a guide who has walked this exact path. We're going to move beyond the classroom and into the messy, wonderful, and sometimes confusing reality of everyday conversations. The secret I wish I'd known earlier is this: fluency isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's about being able to describe the weird dream you had last night, complain about the traffic in a relatable way, or confidently explain your favorite recipe. It's the language of daily life, and that's where true confidence is built. We're going to focus on practical, high-frequency topics that you actually encounter. We'll simulate conversations, explore useful vocabulary that natives really use, and I'll share tricks to help you think in English, so you can respond naturally instead of translating in your head. Our journey will be structured, but it will feel like a series of chats. We'll start with the foundation, mastering the art of small talk. Then, we'll navigate different settings, from the supermarket to the doctor's office, from sharing stories to expressing opinions. Each section will build on the last, adding layers to your speaking ability. I'll be with you every step of the way, speaking clearly and at a pace designed for intermediate learners, just like you. So, take a deep breath. Forget about the pressure of getting everything perfect. Get comfortable. It's time to stop just learning English and start using it. Now, let's tackle the one thing that can make or break your confidence in any social situation: small talk. I used to dread it. The thought of having to fill those silent moments with a stranger or an acquaintance felt like being put on the spot with a pop quiz I hadn't studied for. But here's a little secret I discovered: small talk isn't about delivering a brilliant monologue. It's a simple, rhythmic dance of asking easy questions and sharing tiny pieces of your world. It's the gateway to deeper connections, and in English, it follows some predictable patterns that, once you learn them, become your greatest asset. Think of small talk as the social glue that holds conversations together. Studies show that nearly 60% of our daily conversations are actually casual chit-chat, comments about the weather, the latest TV show, or how busy the traffic was. Why? Because it's a safe, low-pressure way to establish rapport and show you're friendly. For us learners, this is fantastic news. It means you don't need complex vocabulary or perfect grammar to succeed. You need a toolkit of reliable starters and responses. The goal is to keep the ball bouncing back and forth comfortably. So, how do we build this toolkit? Let's start with the golden rule: be a great question asker. People love to talk about themselves. A simple, open-ended question is your best friend. Instead of asking, "Did you have a good weekend?" which can be answered with a simple yes or no, try, "What did you get up to over the weekend?" This invites a story, not just a one-word answer. Another powerful technique is the echo and add. Listen to what the other person says, repeat a keyword, and then add your own related thought. For example, if they say, "I spent the weekend hiking," you can respond, "Hiking? I love that. Where did you go?" This shows you're listening and naturally expands the conversation. Let's practice with a common scenario, waiting for a meeting to start. Imagine you're in the break room with a coworker, Anna. You, morning, Anna. That's a great coffee mug. Anna, oh, thanks. My daughter gave it to me. You, how thoughtful. How old is your daughter? Anna, she's 6. You, 6 is a wonderful age. I bet she keeps you busy. See how that flows? You started with an observation, asked a follow-up question, and showed genuine interest. The vocabulary is simple, but the effect is powerful. We'll dive into many more of these scripted interactions, but the key is to practice them until they feel natural. Remember, the pressure is off. You're not being tested, you're just connecting, one small word at a time. Now that we've got the basics of small talk down, let's talk about what happens when the conversation needs to go a little deeper, or when you find yourself in a situation where you need to be more direct. Small talk is the appetizer, but sometimes you need the main course. This is where many learners hit another wall, the fear of making a specific request or explaining a complex need. I remember once, I was at a pharmacy, and I needed a very specific type of allergy medicine. I knew the word allergy, but I couldn't remember the word for drowsy or non-drowsy. I ended up miming falling asleep at the counter. It was effective, but hardly elegant. That day, I realized that functional vocabulary for specific situations is just as important as conversational fluency. This brings us to our first practical setting, navigating a supermarket or grocery store. This might seem simple, but it's a goldmine for practical language practice. It's not just about knowing the words for apple or bread. It's about interacting with staff, finding what you need, and handling unexpected situations. The language here is often question-based and requires clear, concise sentences. Let's break down a typical trip into key interactions. First, entering the store. You might need to find a shopping cart or a basket. Simple, but good to know. Excuse me, where can I find a shopping cart, or do you have baskets? Notice the polite "excuse me" to start. Then, the inevitable, you can't find an item. This is your chance to practice asking for help. Instead of wandering aimlessly, approach a staff member. A great phrase is, "I'm looking for item, but I can't seem to find it. Could you point me in the right direction?" This is polite and clear. Another useful structure is, "Where would I find the section, e.g., baking supplies?" This shows you understand how stores are organized. Now, the checkout line. This is often fast-paced, but it's a perfect place for brief, scripted interactions. The cashier might ask, "Did you find everything all right today?" This is a common courtesy question. Your answer can be a simple, "Yes, thank you." But if you didn't, you could say, "Actually, I was looking for item, but it's okay." They might offer to check in the back. Then, there are questions about payment. Will you be paying with cash or card, or do you have a loyalty card with us? Prepare your answers, "I'll pay by card, please," or "No, I don't have one." Finally, bagging your groceries. They might ask, "Do you need any help with your bags?" You can respond with, "I'm fine, thank you," or "Yes, that would be great." These short exchanges are confidence-building blocks. Each one you master makes the next one easier. After you've managed the supermarket, a natural next step is navigating a restaurant. This is where language meets culture, and it can be both exciting and a little intimidating. I'll never forget my first time trying to order a steak in an English-speaking country. The waiter asked me, "How would you like that done?" My mind went completely blank. I knew the words for well, medium, and rare, but in that moment, under pressure, I panicked and just said, "Good, please. Make it good." The waiter gave me a very confused smile. I ended up with a well-done steak, which was fine, but I learned a valuable lesson about preparing for these specific interactions. Eating out is a social ritual, and the language follows a predictable script. Mastering this script doesn't just get you the food you want, it makes you feel like you belong at the table. Let's walk through the typical stages of a restaurant visit. It begins before you even sit down. The host might greet you with, "Do you have a reservation?" You can reply with, "Yes, it's under your name," or "No, we don't." "A table for two, please." Simple, clear. Then comes the most important part, ordering. The waiter will often start by asking about drinks. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" This is your cue. You can say, "Just water for now, thank you," or "I'll have a Coke, please." When it's time to order food, they might ask, "Are you ready to order?" If you need more time, the perfect phrase is, "Could we have a few more minutes, please?" When you are ready, use "I'll have." Or "I'd like to order the." Remember my steak story? When they ask how you want it cooked, the standard terms are rare, medium, medium well, and well done. Practice these. They are essential. During the meal, you might need to get the waiter's attention. Instead of waving frantically, a calm, "Excuse me," when they are nearby is perfect. If there's an issue with the food, like it's cold, you can say politely, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but my soup is quite cold. Could it be warmed up?" Being polite is key. Finally, the bill. In many places, you need to ask for it. You can say, "Could we get the check, please?" or "We're ready to pay when you are." Each of these small, mastered interactions builds a seamless and enjoyable experience. It turns a potential source of anxiety into a confident and pleasant outing. Moving on from the social pleasures of dining out, let's talk about a scenario that often causes a lot of anxiety for learners: visiting a doctor or a healthcare clinic. It's one thing to order food incorrectly, but it's another entirely to misunderstand or be misunderstood when talking about your health. I recall a time I had a terrible sinus infection. I managed to book an appointment, but when the doctor asked, "What seems to be the problem?" my mind went blank on the word sinus. I ended up pointing to my nose and forehead, saying, "There is much pressure and pain here and here." The doctor was kind and figured it out, but I left feeling frustrated. I knew I needed to be able to describe my symptoms accurately and confidently. This is why mastering healthcare vocabulary is so crucial. It empowers you to take control of your well-being in an English-speaking environment. The good news is that, like restaurants, doctors' visits follow a standard script. Once you learn the key phrases and questions, you can navigate them with much greater ease. We'll focus on the three main stages: making the appointment, the consultation itself, and understanding the advice or prescription afterward. Let's start with the phone call to schedule an appointment. This is often the first hurdle. The receptionist will likely answer with the clinic's name and ask, "How can I help you?" Your response should be clear: "I'd like to make an appointment to see the doctor, please." They might ask, "Is this an emergency, or what is the reason for your visit?" You don't need to go into deep detail here. Simple terms are fine: "I have a persistent cough, I think I have the flu," or "I need a checkup." Be prepared to give your name, date of birth, and possibly your phone number. Practice spelling your name clearly, as this is common. During the consultation, the doctor will want to know your symptoms. This is where descriptive vocabulary is key. Think about the four main aspects of a symptom: location, intensity, quality, and duration. Instead of just "I have a headache," you could say, "I have a sharp pain on the left side of my head that started yesterday." Useful adjectives include dull, sharp, throbbing, aching, constant, or occasional. The doctor will ask questions like, "How long have you had these symptoms?" or "Does anything make it better or worse?" Listen for keywords like fever, nausea, dizziness, or rash. If you don't understand a question, it's perfectly okay to say, "Could you please repeat that?" or "I'm not sure I understand." It's much better to ask for clarification than to guess. Finally, understanding the diagnosis and treatment. The doctor might say, "You have an infection," and prescribe medication. Key questions to ask are, "How often should I take this?" and "Are there any side effects?" Make sure you understand the instructions by repeating them back. "So, I need to take one pill twice a day after meals, is that correct?" This active confirmation ensures you leave with confidence. Remember, healthcare professionals are there to help, and being prepared with the right language makes the process smooth for everyone. Have you ever had a hilarious or embarrassing moment that you were dying to share with a new friend, but when you switched to English, the story came out as a confusing jumble of events? I certainly have. There was this one time I tried to explain how I accidentally locked myself out of my apartment wearing only my bathrobe. In my native language, it would have been a comedy routine, but in English, I stumbled over the past tenses, forgot keywords like lock and key, and ended with a week, so, yeah, it was bad. The person just nodded politely, completely missing the humor. That's when I realized that sharing anecdotes isn't just about vocabulary, it's about weaving a narrative that captures attention and emotion. This skill, storytelling, is the heart of connecting on a deeper level. For intermediate learners, moving from simple sentences to a flowing story is a huge leap forward. It allows you to participate in group conversations, share your experiences, and truly let your personality shine through. The good news is that effective storytelling relies on a simple structure and a handful of useful phrases. Think of it as building a mini-movie in the listener's mind. You need to set the scene, introduce the conflict or event, and then reveal the outcome, all while using descriptive language to paint a picture. Let's break down the structure. First, you need a strong opening hook to grab attention. Instead of starting with, "I want to tell you a story," jump right in with something like, "You'll never believe what happened to me yesterday," or "I had the strangest experience last week." This creates immediate curiosity. Next, set the scene. Describe where you were, who you were with, and what you were doing. Use simple but evocative language: "I was just leaving work, and it was pouring rain," or "I was at a crowded market, trying to buy some fruit." Then, describe the main event, the problem or the funny incident. This is where sequence words are your best friend. Words like suddenly, then, after that, and before I knew it help guide the listener through the timeline. Don't forget to describe your feelings and reactions. Instead of just "I was surprised," say "my jaw dropped" or "I couldn't believe my eyes." This makes the story relatable. Finally, end with a clear conclusion and a reflection. What was the result? How did you feel afterwards? A good ending might be, "In the end, I had to call my landlord, and I felt so relieved when he showed up," or "We all laughed about it later, but it was so embarrassing at the time." Practice with a simple story from your own life. Write it down first, then try telling it out loud. Focus on the flow, not perfection. Remember, the goal is to engage, not to deliver a grammatically flawless speech. People will remember how your story made them feel long after they've forgotten a small grammar mistake. So, grab a common experience, like a travel mishap or a cooking disaster, and start practicing. You'll be amazed at how much more confident you become in conversations. Now that we've practiced telling stories, let's tackle something equally important but often tricky: expressing your opinions and preferences clearly. Have you ever been in a group discussion where everyone is sharing their thoughts on a movie, a political issue, or even just the best place to get coffee, and you find yourself nodding along silently because you're not sure how to jump in? I remember a team meeting at work where we were deciding on a project theme. I had a strong idea, but when I tried to say it, it came out as, "I think maybe we can do this," or something else. It was vague and unconvincing. Someone else said almost the same idea but with confidence, and it was immediately adopted. That taught me that being able to articulate your viewpoint is not just about language, it's about assertiveness and connection. Expressing opinions is a key part of everyday communication, whether you're chatting with friends, participating in a class, or contributing at work. It shows that you're engaged and have your own perspective. For intermediate learners, the challenge often lies in moving beyond simple "I like" or "I don't like" sentences to more nuanced expressions that can handle agreement, disagreement, and subtle preferences. The goal isn't to be confrontational but to communicate effectively while maintaining respect and rapport. Let's start with some essential phrases. To state your opinion politely, you can use softeners like "in my opinion," "from my perspective," or "I feel that." These make your statement sound less forceful and more open to discussion. For example, instead of saying "this book is boring," you could say, "In my opinion, this book is a bit slow-paced." This invites others to share their views without shutting them down. When you agree with someone, instead of just saying yes, you can use phrases like "I completely agree," "That's a good point," or "You've hit the nail on the head." This shows you're listening and builds camaraderie. Disagreeing can be delicate, but it's possible to do it politely. Avoid blunt statements like "you're wrong." Instead, try "I see what you're saying, but I have a different view," or "That's an interesting perspective, however, I think." Another useful technique is to acknowledge the other person's point before presenting your own. For example, "I understand why you like that approach, but I'm concerned about the cost." This shows respect and keeps the conversation constructive. When it comes to preferences, whether it's choosing a restaurant or a weekend plan, being clear is helpful. Use phrases like "I'd prefer to," or "I'm more inclined to go with." If you're indifferent, you can say, "I don't have a strong preference," or "Either option works for me." Practice these in low-stakes situations, like deciding what to watch on TV with friends. The more you use them, the more natural they'll feel. Remember, the key is to listen actively and respond thoughtfully. Don't worry about having perfect grammar, focus on making your point understood. People will appreciate your contribution more than they'll notice a small error. So, next time you're in a discussion, take a deep breath and try to express one opinion clearly. You'll find that your confidence grows with each attempt. I'll never forget the first time I had to make an important phone call entirely in English. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I was trying to confirm a dental appointment, and I had rehearsed my lines perfectly. But when the receptionist answered with a cheerful, "Good morning, Dr. Smith's office, how can I help you?" my mind went blank. Instead of my prepared sentence, I blurted out, "I need teeth?" There was a pause on the other end, and then she kindly asked, "Are you calling to schedule a cleaning?" I managed a weak yes, but I hung up feeling utterly defeated. That experience taught me that phone calls are a unique challenge because you can't rely on gestures or facial expressions. It's all about clarity and confidence in your voice. For many intermediate learners, phone conversations can be particularly daunting. Without visual cues, every word and intonation carries more weight. But mastering phone skills is incredibly empowering. Think about it. From ordering takeout to handling customer service issues, phone calls are a gateway to independence in an English-speaking environment. The key is to learn a set of reliable phrases and strategies that work across various situations. With practice, you can turn anxiety into assurance. Let's break down a typical phone call into manageable parts. First, the greeting. When you answer a call, a simple hello is fine, but if you're calling a business, they might state the company name. When you make a call, it's polite to immediately identify yourself and state your purpose. For example, "Hello, my name is," your name. "I'm calling to inquire about." This clarity helps the other person assist you quickly. One of the biggest fears is not understanding what the other person says. This is where clarification phrases become your best friend. Instead of panicking, you can say, "I'm sorry, could you please repeat that, or could you speak a little more slowly?" Another useful phrase is, "I just want to confirm," which shows you're being careful. For instance, if someone gives you an address over the phone, you might say, "Let me confirm that, 123 Main Street, is that correct?" Practice common scenarios. Imagine calling a restaurant to make a reservation. "Hello, I'd like to make a reservation for 2 people for tonight at 7 p.m. Receptionist, "Certainly, and under what name?" "It's under Garcia." Notice the use of "I'd like," which is polite and direct. Or, if you're calling to report a problem, like a leaking faucet in your apartment, you might say, "I'm calling to report a maintenance issue. The kitchen faucet is leaking." Being specific helps them understand the urgency. Ending a call gracefully is also important. Common closings include, "Thank you for your help," or "I appreciate your time." If you need to go, you can say, "I have to let you go now," which is polite. Remember, the person on the other end is usually there to help, so speak clearly, at a moderate pace, and don't be afraid to ask for repetition. With each call, you'll build confidence. Start with low-stakes calls, like ordering pizza, and work your way up. You've got this. I still remember the first time a new colleague asked me, "So, what do you do for fun?" I froze. My mind raced through my hobbies, reading, hiking, watching movies, but all I could muster was a timid, "I like books." The conversation fizzled out quickly, and I missed a golden opportunity to connect. It hit me then that talking about your interests isn't just about listing activities, it's about sharing a piece of your identity. For intermediate learners, mastering this topic can transform awkward silences into meaningful exchanges. Hobbies are a universal language of passion, and learning to express yours in English opens doors to friendship and deeper cultural understanding. The beauty of discussing hobbies is that it's a low-pressure topic. People are generally enthusiastic when talking about what they love, and that positive energy is infectious. However, the challenge lies in moving beyond basic vocabulary. Instead of just saying, "I like swimming," you can say, "I'm really into swimming because it helps me clear my head," or "I'm an avid swimmer, I try to go to the pool 3 times a week." These small additions, adverbs like really or avidly, and reasons behind your interest, make your speech more engaging and natural. Let's build your hobby vocabulary toolkit. Start by categorizing your interests. Are they active hobbies like sports or dancing? Creative ones like painting or writing? Or perhaps leisure activities like gardening or gaming? For each category, learn a few specific verbs and nouns. For example, if you enjoy cooking, instead of repeatedly using cook, you can say whip up a meal, experiment with recipes, or bake from scratch. If you're a music lover, you might play the guitar, listen to indie bands, or go to live concerts. These phrases add color to your descriptions. Another key aspect is using the correct prepositions and gerunds. We say, "I'm interested in photography," "I'm good at playing chess," or "I spend my free time reading." Practice these structures until they feel automatic. Also, learn how to ask follow-up questions to keep the conversation flowing. If someone mentions they enjoy hiking, you can ask, "What's your favorite trail?" or "Have you ever gone hiking in the mountains?" This shows genuine interest and keeps the dialogue balanced. Here's a sample dialogue to illustrate. You, "I've been getting into gardening lately." Friend, "Oh, really? What are you growing?" You, "Mostly herbs and some tomatoes." It's surprisingly relaxing to watch them grow. Friend, "That sounds rewarding. I've always wanted to try that." You should. "I can give you some tips if you'd like." See how this exchange goes beyond simple statements? It invites interaction. To practice, try recording yourself describing your favorite hobby for 1 minute. Focus on using at least 3 descriptive phrases. Don't worry about perfection, the goal is fluency over accuracy. Remember, people are more interested in your enthusiasm than your grammar. So, pick a hobby, brainstorm some key phrases, and start sharing your passions. You'll be amazed at how many conversations you can start with just this one topic. Of all the topics we've covered, few are as universally exciting and conversation-starting as travel. Yet, it can also be a minefield of specific vocabulary and complex past tenses. I'll never forget my first solo trip to a new city. I arrived at the train station, overwhelmed by the crowds and the loudspeaker announcements I could barely decipher. I needed to find my platform, but when I approached an official to ask, "Where is the train?" he replied with a rapid-fire sentence involving delayed, track change, and departure board. I just stood there, nodding with a frozen smile, completely lost. That moment of confusion taught me that travel English isn't just about booking a hotel, it's about handling the unpredictable, real-time interactions that happen along the way. Mastering travel conversations empowers you to explore with confidence. Whether you're describing a past vacation, planning a future one, or navigating a journey in the present moment, the language follows certain patterns. We'll focus on three key areas: sharing travel experiences, the logistics of planning, and essential phrases for navigating transportation and accommodation. This is where your storytelling skills from earlier will truly shine. Let's start with recounting a trip. This is a common social exchange. Instead of saying, "I went to Paris," "It was good," you can create a vivid picture. Use the past tense effectively. "I traveled to Paris last spring." Then, add details. Describe the place. "The city was incredibly vibrant, with charming cafes on every corner." Talk about what you did. "We spent our days exploring art museums and wandering along the Seine River." Finally, share a personal reflection. "The highlight for me was seeing the Eiffel Tower sparkle at night. It was truly magical." Phrases like "the best part was," "I was really impressed by," or "one thing that surprised me was." Make your story engaging. Now, for the planning stage. Imagine you're at a travel agency or talking to a friend. You need to express preferences. Use conditional phrases: "I'd like to go somewhere warm," or "We'd prefer a hotel close to the city center." You can ask questions like, "What would you recommend for a family?" or "Is it easy to get around using public transportation?" This kind of dialogue practice prepares you for real-life bookings. Finally, let's tackle on-the-go phrases. At an airport, you might need to ask, "Where is the baggage claim?" or "Is this the gate for Flight 207 to London?" At a hotel, check-in involves, "I have a reservation under the name Garcia." If you have a problem, like a noisy room, you can politely state, "I'm sorry, but my room is quite noisy. Is it possible to change?" The key is to be clear and polite. Practice these scenarios by role-playing both sides of the conversation. This builds muscle memory for when you need it most. Remember, every traveler, regardless of language, encounters hiccups. Your ability to communicate calmly and clearly will turn a potential problem into a simple step in your adventure. Even with all the vocabulary and grammar in the world, misunderstandings are an inevitable part of communication, especially in a second language. I learned this the hard way when I enthusiastically told my host family that a meal was very interesting, intending it as a polite compliment. They looked a bit confused and later asked if I actually liked it. I realized then that interesting can sometimes sound like a neutral or even negative response. That small hiccup taught me an invaluable lesson. Knowing how to clarify and correct yourself is just as important as knowing what to say initially. It's a skill that turns potential embarrassment into a moment of connection. This ability to navigate misunderstandings gracefully is a hallmark of true fluency. It shows you're engaged and committed to being understood. For intermediate learners, the fear of making a mistake can be paralyzing, but the reality is that native speakers make mistakes and need clarification all the time. The key is having a toolkit of phrases to manage these moments smoothly. Let's explore strategies for when you don't understand something, when you've been misunderstood, and when you need to correct a minor error yourself. First, when you don't catch what someone said. Instead of just saying "what," which can sound abrupt, use softer, more polite phrases. "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it, please?" is perfect. If you understood some but not all, be specific. "I heard you say meeting on Friday, but I missed the time. Could you say that part again?" This shows you are listening closely. Another powerful phrase is, "Could you rephrase that?" This asks the speaker to use different words, which is often more helpful than a simple repetition. Now, for when you sense the other person hasn't understood you. Perhaps you used the wrong word or your pronunciation was unclear. The best approach is to clarify immediately. Start with phrases like, "Let me rephrase that," or "in other words." Then, try to express the idea more simply. For example, if you said, "I need a tool for making holes in paper," and see confusion, you can clarify, "I need a hole punch." Don't be afraid to use your hands or simple synonyms. The goal is mutual understanding, not perfection. Finally, what if you realize you made a small grammatical error after you've spoken? Most of the time, it's best to just keep going. Constant self-correction can disrupt the flow of conversation. However, if the error could lead to a genuine misunderstanding, it's okay to gently correct yourself. A quick, "Sorry, I meant we went, not we go," is sufficient before continuing your story. The most important thing is to maintain a positive, relaxed attitude. A smile and a willingness to laugh at yourself can diffuse any tension. Remember, every misunderstanding is a chance to learn. Each time you successfully clarify something, you're not just fixing a mistake, you're building confidence in your ability to handle the dynamic, unpredictable nature of real-life English. I was at a coffee shop with a group of acquaintances when someone brought up a major news story about a space mission. Everyone was excitedly sharing their thoughts, and I wanted to join in. I had read about it in my own language, so I knew the facts, but when I tried to say something in English, my mind went blank on the specific terms. I managed to say, "The rocket is very big," which was met with polite smiles. I felt so frustrated because I had intelligent opinions, but they were trapped behind a language barrier. That day, I realized that discussing current events is a cornerstone of social integration. It's not just about understanding the news, it's about participating in the community dialogue around you. For intermediate learners, talking about current events can feel daunting because it often involves specialized vocabulary and faster-paced conversations. However, you don't need to be an expert on every topic. The goal is to be able to share your perspective, ask thoughtful questions, and understand the main points of a discussion. This skill boosts your confidence in social settings and helps you connect with others on a deeper level. Let's break down how you can comfortably engage in conversations about the news. First, it's essential to build a habit of consuming news in English. Start with sources designed for learners or those that use simpler language, like news apps with easy English sections or podcasts that summarize the news slowly. As you listen or read, focus on identifying the key elements of any story: who, what, when, where, why, and how. This will help you grasp the core information quickly. Don't worry about understanding every word, focus on the main ideas. Keep a notebook for new vocabulary related to common topics like politics, technology, environment, or entertainment. When it comes to joining a conversation, you can use several strategies. If you're unsure about the details, it's perfectly okay to ask clarifying questions. For example, if someone mentions a recent election, you could say, "I heard about that, but could you remind me of the main candidates?" This shows interest without pretending to know everything. To express your opinion, use phrases like, "From what I understand," or "It seems to me that," which soften your statement and make it sound more conversational. If you agree, you can say, "I think so too, especially because," and add a reason. If you disagree, be polite, "I see your point, but I have a different view because." Practice with a friend or a language partner by summarizing a short news article in your own words. For instance, after reading about a climate change report, you might say, "I read that scientists are urging immediate action to reduce carbon emissions." It sounds alarming, but I'm hopeful because many countries are investing in renewable energy. This kind of summary helps you organize your thoughts and use relevant vocabulary. Another useful technique is to connect the news to your own life. For example, this story about remote work trends reminds me of how my company has adapted recently. Remember, the aim is to engage, not to impress. Most people are happy to explain things if you show genuine curiosity. Start with topics you're passionate about and gradually expand your range. Each conversation will make you more comfortable with the language of current events. So, next time you hear a news headline, take a moment to think about how you'd discuss it in English. You'll find that your ability to participate grows with every attempt. Have you ever tried to describe a person you met, a beautiful place you visited, or even a simple object you lost, and found yourself using the same basic words over and over? He was nice. She was tall. The beach was good. I remember trying to tell a friend about a stunning sunset I saw, a painting of colors in the sky, but all I could say was, "It was very beautiful." My friend nodded, but I knew I hadn't captured even a fraction of the experience. I felt like my English was a black and white photograph of a vibrant, color world. That's when I understood the power of descriptive language. Moving beyond simple adjectives is what transforms your speech from understandable to captivating, allowing you to share your world in rich, vivid detail. This skill, describing people, places, and things with precision, is essential for storytelling, for giving directions, for making recommendations, and for simply connecting with others on a sensory level. For intermediate learners, the next step is to build a toolkit of more specific vocabulary and to learn how to structure descriptions in a way that paints a clear picture for your listener. It's about showing, not just telling. Instead of "the meal was delicious," you could say, "the stew was hearty and flavorful, with tender meat and aromatic herbs." See the difference? Let's explore how to build these descriptions. Start with people. Instead of old, try elderly or in his 70s. Instead of pretty, consider she has a warm smile and kind eyes. Think about appearance, personality, and mannerisms. For appearance, use phrases like shoulder-length hair, a slender build, or dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. For personality, move beyond nice to thoughtful, easygoing, witty, or reserved. And for mannerisms, describe how they do things. She speaks very animatedly, using her hands a lot, or he has a habit of pausing thoughtfully before he answers. Now, for places. The key is to engage the senses. What do you see? The city streets were bustling with people, neon signs glowing against the evening sky. What do you hear? You could hear the distant sound of traffic and the chatter from nearby cafes. What do you smell? The air was filled with the scent of fresh rain on pavement. Use prepositions of place to orient your listener: in the corner of the room, across from the park, at the far end of the beach. Compare these two sentences: "The market was busy" versus "The market was a hive of activity, with vendors calling out, colorful fruits piled high on stalls, and the smell of spices hanging in the air." The second sentence immerses the listener. Finally, describing feelings and abstract concepts. This is where adverbs and more nuanced adjectives come in. Instead of "I was happy," you could say, "I was absolutely thrilled," or "I felt a deep sense of contentment." Instead of "the movie was sad," try "the movie was deeply moving, it left me feeling quite emotional." Practice by picking an object in the room and describing it in detail for 1 minute. Focus on its color, shape, texture, purpose, and where it's located. This simple exercise forces you to search for more precise words. Remember, good description is about selecting the right details to create an impression. You don't have to describe everything, just the most important, striking things. With practice, you'll find your conversations becoming much more colorful and engaging. Think about the last time you had to explain how to update an app on your phone or describe a problem you were having with your internet connection. Now, imagine trying to do that in English. Technology is woven into the fabric of our daily lives, and yet the language surrounding it can feel like a specialized code. I recall trying to help my grandfather set up a video call. I found myself saying, "Just click the thing, the button with the little camera." He was utterly lost, and I realized my own vocabulary was insufficient. For intermediate learners, tech talk is a crucial modern survival skill. It empowers you to solve problems, help others, and navigate the digital world with confidence. Mastering technology-related vocabulary goes far beyond knowing the word for computer. It's about understanding the verbs and nouns that describe actions and components. The good news is that a lot of tech language is international, but the way we phrase questions and instructions is key. We'll focus on practical scenarios, giving and receiving tech support, explaining how to use a website or app, and describing common problems. Let's start with the basics, the components. Instead of thing, you can use more precise terms like icon, button, menu, tab, or scroll bar. For example, click the settings icon, it looks like a gear. Or, scroll down to the bottom of the page. Verbs are equally important. We click, tap, scroll, swipe, type, download, upload, install, and update. Practice pairing these verbs and nouns. Download the update from the App Store. Swipe left to see the next photo. One of the most common tech conversations involves asking for help. Being able to describe a problem accurately is half the battle. Instead of "it's broken," be specific. "My screen is frozen." "The Wi-Fi is acting up, the connection is very slow." "I can't log in, it says my password is incorrect." Use the present continuous tense to describe ongoing issues. "The video is buffering constantly." "The app is crashing every time I open it." This precise description helps the other person diagnose the issue faster. Similarly, giving instructions requires clarity and sequence words. Walk someone through a process step by step. First, open your browser. Then, type the web address into the search bar. After that, press enter. Use language that indicates location. In the top right corner, you'll see a search icon. At the bottom of the page, there's a submit button. If you're on a video call, you might say, "Can you share your screen?" Now, click on the folder labeled Documents. Practice this by thinking of a simple task you do often, like ordering food through an app. Describe the process out loud from start to finish. First, I open the delivery app. I tap the search bar and type the name of the restaurant. I select the restaurant from the list. Then, I choose my food items and add them to the cart. Finally, I proceed to checkout and select my payment method. This kind of self-narration is excellent practice. Technology is a practical domain, and the language is functional. By learning these key phrases, you turn a potential source of frustration into an area where you can assist and be assisted with ease. We have covered so much ground together, from the basics of small talk to the complexities of describing the world around you. But all of this knowledge is like having a toolbox full of the finest instruments. Its true value is only realized when you start building something with it. The bridge between learning and true, effortless speaking is practice, consistent, deliberate, and courageous practice. I can still feel the nervous excitement of my first real, unscripted conversation after weeks of studying. It was messy, I made mistakes, but for the first time, I wasn't just speaking English, I was having a conversation, and the language was simply the vehicle. That shift in mindset is the ultimate goal. This final section is not about introducing new topics, but about giving you a sustainable framework for your ongoing journey. Fluency isn't a destination you arrive at, it's a path you walk every day. The biggest mistake learners make is waiting until they feel ready to speak. The truth is, you will never feel completely ready. Confidence comes from doing, not from waiting. So, how do you make practice a natural and enjoyable part of your daily life? First, integrate English into your environment. Change the language settings on your phone and social media to English. It's a passive learning method that forces you to interact with the language daily. Follow English-speaking content creators who talk about your hobbies, whether it's cooking, gaming, or gardening. Listen to English music and read the lyrics. Watch movies or series first with English subtitles, then without. The goal is immersion, even if you're at home. Second, find your speaking opportunities. This is the most crucial step. If you don't have a conversation partner, talk to yourself. Narrate your actions as you cook dinner. I'm chopping the onions now. The pan is getting hot. It feels silly at first, but it trains your brain to think in English. Use language exchange apps to find partners for short, regular chats. Don't aim for hour-long sessions. 15 minutes of focused conversation is more valuable. Remember, perfection is not the goal. Communication is. Finally, adopt a growth mindset. View every mistake not as a failure, but as a data point. When you stumble over a word or use the wrong tense, note it down mentally. After the conversation, look it up. This turns errors into active learning. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Did you successfully order a coffee without hesitation? That's a win. Did you understand a joke? Another win. This journey is made up of thousands of these small victories. You have all the tools you need. You know how to start a conversation, keep it going, share stories, express opinions, and handle daily tasks. The final step is to trust yourself. The English you have is enough to begin. The rest will come with time and practice. You are not just an English learner, you are an English user. And now, it's your turn to speak. Thank you for letting me guide you this far. Your adventure is just beginning. You might have noticed a theme running through all these lessons, the incredible importance of those small, seemingly insignificant words that hold our sentences together. Prepositions. I used to think they were my greatest enemy. Why is it a picture of the sky, but a video on the internet? Why do we get in a car but on a bus? For a long time, I relied on guesswork, which led to some confusing moments. I once told a friend I would meet them on the library instead of at the library. They were very amused, picturing me waiting on the roof. Mastering these little words is a silent superpower for an intermediate learner. It's the difference between being understood and sounding natural. The challenge with prepositions is that they often don't translate directly from your native language. The rules can feel arbitrary. However, instead of trying to memorize every single rule, it's more effective to learn them in common chunks and patterns. Think of prepositions as the glue that expresses relationship, time, place, movement, and connection. We'll focus on the most frequent ones and their most common uses, which will immediately clean up your speech and make it more precise. Let's start with the big three: in, on, and at for time and place. For time, we use in for longer periods, in the summer, in 2024, in the morning. On for specific days, on Monday, on my birthday, on the weekend. At for precise times, at 3 o'clock, at noon, at night. For place, the logic is similar. In for enclosed spaces, in the kitchen, in a city, in a book. On for surfaces and specific locations, on the table, on the wall, on the page, on the internet. At for specific points, at the bus stop, at the door, at home, at work. Another crucial area is prepositions that follow verbs and adjectives. These are called dependent prepositions, and they are best learned as a set phrase. For example, we don't wait for a person, we depend on them, we think about a problem, and we apologize for a mistake. Similarly with adjectives, we are interested in something, good at a skill, afraid of spiders, and happy with a result. The best way to learn these is not by memorizing lists, but by noticing them when you read or listen. When you see a verb like succeed, pay attention to what follows: succeed in doing something. Jot it down in a notebook. Create flashcards with the full phrase, to succeed in plus verb ing. Practice using these phrases in sentences about your own life. For instance, I need to focus on improving my pronunciation, or I'm excited about my upcoming trip. Don't be discouraged by mistakes. Even advanced learners occasionally mix up prepositions. The goal is gradual improvement. When you're speaking, if you're unsure, take a guess. It's better to try and be corrected than to remain silent. With consistent exposure and practice, these patterns will start to feel natural. You'll develop an intuition for what sounds right. Those little words will stop being a source of anxiety and become trusted tools in your English toolkit. Just when I thought I had a handle on prepositions, I encountered a whole new world of confusion: phrasal verbs. I'll never forget the first time someone told me a meeting was called off. I understood called, but where was it off to? Then I heard someone say they needed to figure out a problem. How do you figure something out? It felt like a secret code. I soon realized that if I wanted to understand everyday English, and not just textbook dialogues, I had to make peace with these tricky 2- or 3-word verbs. They are everywhere, and mastering them is perhaps the single most effective way to make your English sound more natural and fluent. A phrasal verb is simply a verb combined with a particle, like up, down, on, off, in, out, that together create a new meaning. The problem is that new meaning often has little to do with the original verb. For example, give means to provide, but give up means to surrender or stop trying. Look means to direct your eyes, but look after means to take care of. This is why they are so challenging. But think of them not as grammar, but as vocabulary. Each phrasal verb is a unique word unit that you need to learn individually. Let's break them down into 2 main types to make them less intimidating: separable and inseparable. This distinction is crucial for using them correctly in a sentence. A separable phrasal verb means you can put the object between the verb and the particle. For example, turn down the volume. You can say, turn the volume down. The object, the volume, can separate the verb and the particle. However, if the object is a pronoun, it must go in the middle. You must say, turn it down, not turn down it. On the other hand, an inseparable phrasal verb means the verb and particle must stay together. You cannot separate them. For example, look for your keys. You can say, I'm looking for my keys, but you cannot say, I'm looking my keys for. Another common inseparable phrasal verb is run into, meaning to meet unexpectedly. You run into an old friend, never run an old friend into. The best way to learn them is in context and in small, themed groups. For example, let's group some common phrasal verbs about relationships. Get along with, to have a friendly relationship. I get along well with my colleagues. Break up with, to end a romantic relationship. She broke up with her boyfriend. Look up to admire and respect. I really look up to my older sister. Don't try to learn dozens at once. Pick a few each week. When you hear one in a movie or read it in an article, write it down in a sentence. Practice using it in your own speaking. Say, I need to turn off the lights, or can you help me look up this word? The more you use them, the less strange they will feel. Embrace the messiness. Making mistakes with phrasal verbs is a sign you're trying to use the real, living language. And that is a fantastic place to be. I still remember the first time I was asked, so, what do you do, in a casual social setting? I had a job I was proud of, but when I tried to describe it in English, my description fell flat. I work in office. I do computer things. The person nodded politely, but I could see the curiosity fade from their eyes. I knew then that being able to talk about your work or studies is more than just stating a title, it's about sharing a significant part of your identity and connecting with others on a professional or academic level. For intermediate learners, mastering this topic is essential because it comes up constantly, from networking events to simple get-togethers. It's your chance to present yourself confidently to the world. The key to talking about work and school effectively is to move beyond basic labels. Instead of saying I'm a student or I'm an engineer, learn to elaborate with what that truly involves. This doesn't require complex jargon, it requires descriptive sentences that paint a picture of your daily life. Think about the aspects people are genuinely curious about, what you actually do, what you enjoy, what challenges you, and what you're learning. This approach transforms a simple question into an engaging conversation. Let's start with describing your job. Begin with your title and company, but then immediately add a sentence about your role. For example, I'm a marketing manager at a tech startup. Basically, I'm responsible for planning our online advertising campaigns and analyzing how well they perform. Notice the use of phrases like basically, in other words, or what that means is. To simplify your explanation, use action verbs to describe your tasks. I manage, I create, I analyze, I coordinate, I develop. If your job is technical, have a simpler, more general explanation ready for casual conversations. For instance, instead of I implement scalable backend solutions, you could say, I work on the technical side of our website, making sure it can handle a lot of visitors without crashing. Now, for students, the principle is the same. I'm a university student can be expanded to, I'm studying biology at University of Toronto. Right now, I'm really focused on my genetics class, and we're doing some fascinating experiments in the lab. Talk about your major, your favorite subjects, your projects, or your future goals. This gives the other person multiple points to ask follow-up questions. Inevitably, you'll be asked about your colleagues or classmates. Prepare a few positive descriptions. I have a great team, everyone is very supportive and collaborative, or my classmates are from all over the world, which makes our discussions really interesting. If you need to describe a problem, focus on the situation, not the person. We're facing some tight deadlines at the moment, is better than my boss is giving us too much work. Practice by recording a 1-minute elevator pitch about your work or studies. Focus on clarity and flow. Remember, people ask about your job to get to know you. Your enthusiasm is contagious. So, take a deep breath, organize your thoughts, and share your story. You have an interesting professional life, now you have the words to share it. After you've mastered describing your work, the conversation often turns to the future. What are your plans for the weekend? Are you going to travel this year? What do you want to do next in your career? These questions about future plans and dreams are where your language can truly come to life, but they also require a solid grasp of those future tenses that can sometimes feel slippery. I used to avoid these questions because I'd get tangled up between will, going to, and the present continuous. I'd end up saying something like, I will go to the cinema maybe tomorrow, which, while understandable, didn't sound quite right. Learning the subtle differences between these structures was like unlocking a new level of expressive freedom. Understanding the future in English isn't about being a fortune teller, it's about expressing intention, certainty, and arrangement with precision. For intermediate learners, this is a key area where you can move from simple statements to nuanced expressions. Let's demystify the 3 most common ways to talk about the future: going to, the present continuous, and will. We use going to for plans and intentions. These are things you've already decided to do. It's a future that's been thought about. For example, I'm going to visit my family next month. You've likely thought about this, maybe even booked tickets. We also use it for predictions based on clear evidence. Look at those dark clouds. It's going to rain. The present continuous for future use is for arrangements. This is for things that are fixed, often with other people involved. It's more definite than going to. If you say, I'm meeting my friend for coffee at 3 p.m., it implies a specific time and place has been agreed upon. The diary is booked. This is very common for social and professional appointments. Then we have will. This is for instant decisions, promises, offers, and predictions not based on present evidence. Your phone rings and you say, I'll get it. That's an instant decision. I'll help you with that project, is a promise. I think it will be sunny tomorrow, is a prediction based on your feeling, not on looking at a weather report. But how do we talk about dreams and goals? This is where more nuanced language comes in. Instead of just I want to, you can use phrases that show determination or hope. I'm hoping to start my own business one day. I'm planning to learn how to play the guitar. I'd like to travel to Japan next year. These phrases soften the statement and make it sound more conversational and realistic. Practice by talking about your upcoming week. What are you going to do? What are you doing that's already arranged? What spontaneous decisions might you make? For example, on Tuesday, I'm going to the dentist. On Wednesday, I'm going to study for a few hours. And if the weather is nice this weekend, I think I'll go for a long hike. This mix of structures is how native speakers naturally talk about the future. It's not about choosing one and sticking to it, It's about using the right tool for the right job. By mastering these, you stop just responding to questions about the future and start actively shaping the conversation around your ambitions and plans. And so, we have reached the end of this particular journey together. We started with that moment of panic in front of a coffee machine, that frustrating gap between knowing and doing. We've walked through the streets of daily life, from the checkout line to the doctor's office, from sharing simple stories to expressing complex opinions. We've armed ourselves with the tools for small talk, the confidence for phone calls, and the vocabulary for our dreams. But this ending is not a finish line, it is the starting gate. Look back at where you were when we began. Now, look at the path you've walked. You have built a formidable toolkit. You understand the rhythm of conversation, the structure of storytelling, and the nuance of future plans. You have strategies for when you get stuck and the knowledge to clarify and continue. This is incredible progress. But I want to leave you with the most important lesson of all, the one that underpins every single word we've covered, the courage to be imperfect. Fluency will not arrive in a single, glorious moment when every verb tense is perfect and every preposition is in its rightful place. Fluency is a gradual dawning, a quiet confidence that grows each time you open your mouth and successfully connect with another human being. It is built in the messy, beautiful, and imperfect moments of real communication. Every time you choose to speak despite your fear, you are becoming fluent. Every time you successfully navigate a misunderstanding, you are becoming fluent. Every time you tell a story and see understanding in someone's eyes, you are becoming fluent. Your English is enough. It is enough to start a conversation, to make a friend, to solve a problem, to share your heart. Don't let the pursuit of a perfect, accent-free, grammatically flawless English become a barrier that keeps you silent. The world is waiting to hear what you have to say. Your experiences, your ideas, your jokes, and your stories are valuable. The language is simply the vehicle for sharing them. So, what happens now? Now, you speak. You take this toolkit and you use it. You find opportunities every single day. You talk to the barista, you chat with a coworker, you join an online community. You embrace the mistakes as signs of growth. You celebrate every small victory. Remember, this is not about transforming into a native speaker. It is about becoming the most powerful version of yourself in English. It has been an honor to guide you this far. But the guide is stepping back now. The path ahead is yours to walk. You have the map, you have the supplies, and you have the strength. Trust yourself. Your voice matters. Go out there and let the world hear it. Thank you for your courage and your commitment. Now, go and speak.